Welcome to the Obesity Medicine Podcast with your host, Dr. Matea Rentia, board certified in internal medicine and obesity medicine. Here, we talk about a path to metabolic health, and we have real conversations about chronic weight management and living a full life. Just a reminder, I am a physician, but I'm not your physician. So everything that's on this podcast is for informational purposes, but please go talk to your doctor about what's right for you. There is no medical advice being given on this podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm really excited today to bring back Jane Pilger. She's a master certified coach, and she has been absolutely transformative in my life as far as helping with my relationship with food. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and your program and everything because it's incredible. But the reason I brought you back today, because is this the third time I think I'm having you on?
I think this is. Yes. I think
three or four.
It's a hat trick. Yes, I love it.
The reason I brought you back is because I've really been I'm in several groups of yours, but one of it is called The Gathering. And you talk a lot about the nervous system. And you brought up there how to map your nervous system. And I thought this is such a great concept. It is easy to understand, hard to apply. And so
yes,
I wanted you to talk about all that. But can we start out introducing yourself and then tell us a little bit about what the nervous system is? And then I have so many questions for you.
Absolutely. So my name is Jane Pilger. I love talking about the nervous system. For me, one of the things I talk a lot about is I help people who struggle with food, who have had a lifelong struggle with food, who have tried all of the things, and for whatever reason, things just haven't worked, or they've worked for a short period of time, but then maybe something else is going on. And this was my lived experience too. I started binge eating my first semester in college and continued on a journey for 25 years trying to stop binge eating. There were so many important parts on my journey, but the nervous system was really, I would say, like the biggest missing piece. That was really one of the last pieces in my journey, was understanding the nervous system and understanding the nervous system's role, particularly for those of us who do struggle with food. A lot of times, what we're really trying to do is to calm or to regulate the nervous system. And if we don't realize that's what's happening, then we just think, well, there's something wrong with me. I must be broken. I know better, but I can't do better. Why is it? And there are a lot of reasons. So it's not to say the nervous system is the only one, but the nervous system is a key reason for a lot of people. And when you can start to understand, which we're going to do today, when you can start to understand what your nervous system is, how do you even know what's happening in your nervous system, and start to pay attention through what we're going to talk about today, then you can start seeing what happens for me. What do I notice in different states of my nervous system? Do I notice that food maybe feels more challenging when I'm in certain states of my nervous system? Maybe for some people, they're like, you know what, when I'm calm, when I'm regulated, no problem at all. And other times it's like, I cannot stop eating, or I can't stop thinking about food. And it's not because there's something fundamentally wrong with you. It may be that you at a very young age learned to use food to regulate your nervous system. And so now it's what your brain and your body know. Let's go back to your initial question. What is the nervous system anyway? We're going to talk today super simple. I love to make this, it's a little bit of a complex system, but I like to make it simple, because if we overcomplicate, then the brain just turns off and it's like, this is too much. I can't figure it out. So very quite simply, the nervous system is really the command center between your brain and your body. It is a two-way system. A lot of people don't realize that. They think it's the way that the brain talks to the rest of the body, which is true, but it actually goes the other way too. Your body is constantly sending signals to your brain as well. So it is a two-way street, communication highway between your brain and your body. It's the command center, and it is constantly working 24 hours a day. It is always on. It's always scanning. It's always just scanning. It's scanning three things. It's scanning the internal environment. It's also scanning the external environment, what's going on out there. And it's scanning what's happening between us. So right now, our nervous systems are scanning whatever's happening inside. I just ate lunch. So my nervous system is probably working on what's going on digestively. It's also outside what is around me, what's around my workspace right now. And between you and me, as we look at each other through the computer screen, our brains are scanning there. So it's kind of like inside, outside, and in between other people. The nervous system is always doing this. It's asking one question constantly. Am I safe? Is the number one question that the nervous system is always, its job, your brain's number one job is to keep you alive. And so it's always scanning for, is there any threat? Am I safe? Now, when it's scanning and when it's looking, am I safe? Am I safe? It's looking for real threats. It also is perceived threat. Here's a great example. I remember one day I was at a conference with a few other people, and we were walking to the elevator, and somebody was coming out of there was one man, single man, walking out of the elevator, and the women that I was with, they felt a little bit of a sense of kind of danger from this man. I don't even remember why, but we got to talking about it later, and I was like, oh, that didn't bother me at all. So their nervous system scanned and signaled, this could be dangerous. Whereas mine was like, oh no, that's not a problem. But I might see something else as dangerous. So this is why your individual nervous system is going to be really unique in how it responds based on what it's been through in the past and what it's doing all the time.
I love how you bring up how complex this is, because I think about like when I go to a conference, I'm very concerned with the food situation. And I've had friends that I've worked on that over time, but it's that I'm just hypersensitive to, I'm a vegetarian, I'm going to be there, there's not going to be anything. And it's like, that has not presented itself at that conference, but I'm scanning for it constantly. And I like how you brought up how it's not only external, but internal. So there's really like a lot going on when we think about all this. Yeah.
Yes. And for people who struggle with food, there is a lot of times a disconnection that we create, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes, it's always some sort of protection. But if you are a person who really feels very disconnected from your physical body for all kinds of reasons, you may not even be aware of just how much is happening inside your body that the messages are sending up to the brain. But because you are so disconnected from that, you may not be aware. But just because you are not aware and you're disconnected from it doesn't mean that there are messages being sent from your body up to your brain, because they literally are constantly happening.
I remember when I started to get more connected with my body, because I definitely had that like head up here, body down here, no idea what's happening.
Yes.
I'm now so much more in tune that it's unbearable when I'm not listening to it. It's like my body, there's so many physical signals, and I'm sure that was always there, but I probably ate over it or distracted in other ways. It's really interesting when you start to do this work, how it changes over time. It's not like, well, I've always been disconnected. It's like, no, we can work on these things. It just might take a lot of years.
That's right. Yes. And it is so important to know, especially with nervous system work, this is long-term work. This is not something that you are just going to be like, oh, I listened to this podcast and now I understand. And now like all of a sudden the lights are on and I feel safe where I didn't feel safe before. It's like, that's unfortunately, that's not how it worked. This sense of what your body perceives as danger, the idea of creating more safety for yourself in your body with other people, all of these things that let the nervous system become more regulated take time, they take repetition, and it's like you were talking about, it's like, oh, I can remember back and I can remember how it was before, and now I can see this huge difference. But a lot of times as it's changing in those moments in the in-between, it's not always perceptible. Sometimes it is, but for a lot of times it's like, this is work that doesn't always have an immediate noticeable payback. But if you can stay with it for the long term, it is work that will truly change every single aspect of your life, not just your relationship with food.
Yeah. I say this so often, everyone wants to, like with the scale, they just want to see it go down, down, down. I'm like, but you don't get the privilege of always seeing what's happening. And same thing with what you're talking about here with the nervous system. And then people suddenly look at you years later and they're like, oh, she's just like a lot more calm and da, da, da. It's like, you didn't see the feet under the water with the duck all those years that was happening. So, okay, so you told us what like roughly what the nervous system does. Can you
Yes.
walk us through the mapping of it? Because I think that was
Yes.
just like super helpful to hear that.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to go again through very basic, very simplistic term. This is based on the work of polyvagal theory. I have simplified some of the terms because when I first started learning about this, I was like, okay, there's sympathetic and there's parasympathetic, and I don't know which is which. And I would get so confused. And then I would almost have to look up, wait, which one is the one where you're kind of activated and which one are you calm? I don't know. I thought, if I can't figure this out, then I'm surely not the only one who has a hard time with all of these terms. So I really have simplified it. When you are feeling calm, grounded, regulated, what some people would call the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest, the ventral state of your nervous system. I call that home base. So it's where you feel at home in your body. Now, you might be listening and like, never, I do not feel at home in my body. And that's okay, fair. But there probably are times where you do feel calm, where you feel peaceful, where you are able to learn, where you're able to take in information, where maybe you're able to really just appreciate a sunset or a sunrise or just be in the moment. That is what I like to consider home base. Home base is where we have access to our prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of our brain. We're able to make plans. We're able to think about what we want, and we're able to make progress towards those things. You and I right now, we're in home base. We're able to have this conversation. We're able to be engaged, and we're here. Now, there's what I like to call above home base. So above home base is also called the sympathetic state of your nervous system. This is a survival state. This is when your brain scans and it's like, danger, danger. There is a threat, but the threat is here, but the threat is such, my nervous system has deemed I can do something about this threat. This is when you hear people talk about fight or flight. This is the above home base, the sympathetic branch of your nervous system. So what happens is that because my nervous system has deemed I can do something about this, it is going to activate me with energy to do the thing, either to run away from the threat or to fight it. This is when you might be driving and somebody pulls you over and you honk and you flip them the bird, or when maybe your partner says something that kind of frustrates you and you just say some things you might regret later. Or, so that's like the fight. There's more anger, there's frustration, there's irritation. Then the flight part comes more in, I'm going to run away from this. So this shows up as anxiety, as worry, as rumination, that type of real high energy. And what I like to think about this as the amount of energy that's in your system. So we're above that kind of grounded place. We have extra energy in the system. And from here, this is when it's like, you may say, I was triggered or I was activated. My nervous system is activated and now I want to do something about it. So in this situation, you may feel that energy in your body. A lot of people, when they get to this place in their nervous system, they can feel it. It's like, oh, I just want to scream. I want to just throw my computer out the window. Or if you're feeling really anxious, I know that I will sometimes feel almost like I just want to come out of my skin. Like I can feel just like this, the tinglies in my skin. And for a lot of people, what they realize is, oh, I want to get away from this feeling. And food becomes a way to do that. So we have this excess energy. What we need, the need is to drain the energy. And what we do is we learn, food is a quick way. If I can go get something to eat, I can quickly drain the energy. But what happens is it goes down through home base and we go down below, which is going to be the next state we're going to talk about, where we have actually very little energy. And especially if we're doing something like binge eating, we're eating big quantities of food. It's like we eat, and yes, it brings us down, but then we're so far down that now we can't really do anything. But what's important is to see the different levels of energy in the different states of your nervous system. So then we can go below home base, which is really, I call it below home base. And this is what some people call dorsal shutdown. This is more kind of like shutdown. This is like when you can't get out of bed, when you know you have 500 things on your to-do list, but you literally can't stop scrolling or can't stop watching YouTube or you can't stop eating, whatever it is. And in this case, your brain, the nervous system has determined this threat is so big that I can't do anything about it. So it's actually a more intensive level of threat. And no longer can I fight it. No longer can I run away from it. I have determined I can't. And so I'm going to collapse and I'm going to do nothing. And you actually see this in the wild with animals, where there are some animals who, when they determine I can't run away, they literally will play dead. And sometimes in playing dead, the animal that is chasing them will actually leave, and that animal will then come back up, shake themselves off, and go about their day. Well, what we don't do, and this is beyond the scope of this podcast, but we don't really learn how to get up and shake ourselves back off. We stay in these various states. And so when we're below home base, this is where we really have very little energy. I can't get out of bed. I can't get off the couch. This is really where more hopelessness, depression, helplessness, those types of things really fall into how you're feeling. Now, this is very simplified. There are also blended states. There's a lot more we could go into. But for somebody who is like, I kind of hear people talking about the nervous system all over the place, and I don't really know what it is, or I don't know how do I translate this to myself? So what I would encourage for you to do is, even right now, ask yourself, as you are listening to this, which of these three states would you say your nervous system is in? Are you in home base? Are you above, meaning there's like excess energy here? Or am I below, meaning, I don't have much energy at all? Mm-hmm. So if you can literally just start to check in with yourself several times throughout the day and ask, which state is my nervous system in? You'll see that we are meant to flow through different states of our nervous system. This isn't to say we should all be in home base 100% of the time, all of the time. No, that is not the case. We actually want to be able to be in different states. When there is a perceived threat or a real threat, we want to be activated. If somebody pulls in front of me on the freeway, I want to be able to swerve and take action and do whatever I need to do. The problem is we get stuck in states. As you're listening, you might also think to yourself, what is my body's preferred state of the nervous system? So most people have a state in their nervous system where they spend more time. I used to spend the majority of my time above home base. Constantly go, 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 do. I'm worried, I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, I'm just going. And what I discovered was that the only time I would slow down is when my body would be sending me lots of signals, but as we were talking about, I would ignore them. And the only time I would slow down would be after a binge. So it's like my body would force a binge. And then that is when I was on the couch. I'd be on the couch scrolling for hours. But it was the only way. My body was like, well, if you're not going to slow down, I will force you to slow down.
And I think this is a common experience. So you're talking about a binge. For me, it was I had to physically get sick. So I would get sick 10, 12 times a year because there was no other way for me to just take a day of resting or plan less. It's really interesting what the pattern is if we're living in that.
That's right. And literally that is the nervous system. Like, okay, we cannot survive in the go, 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 like in that survival state all the time. We also cannot survive below home base when we're in that shutdown. The nervous system will send something for us to get some more energy. And for some people, that's food. It's like, well, if I have no energy, I'm below home base. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, that's food. And it becomes this feedback loop where I'm going back and forth between I'm above, I'm in this way activated energy, and then I'm below, and then I'm literally back and forth. But what I don't have is the connection with other people, the connection with myself, the connection with my body, the safety that's really required to become comfortable and in that regulated home base place. Another term that people that is used for home base is window of tolerance. It is the window where you are able to tolerate uncomfortable emotions, where you are able to tolerate any amount of, let's say, perceived danger or any amount of discomfort. And for a lot of people, their window of tolerance starts really small. And what we can do with this work is you can actually grow your window. And this is what I've done. I used to have a tiny, tiny window of tolerance. If I was in there, then everything was okay. And if not, then I would spend most of my time above. But it's all capacity. So the more I grow my capacity to be in home base, I grow the size of my window. Now there's less overall for above and below because I'm spending more of my life, more time in that regulated space. What we want to do is for you, as you're listening, pay attention. What are the things? When do I notice I'm in home base? If ever, if I'm in home base, what are my own kind of cues for it? How do I feel? What am I doing? If you notice that you're in home base, what were you doing before? What were you doing that led you to be in this place where you feel more connected, more grounded? And similarly, if I'm above, if I have all this extra energy, what am I doing? What am I noticing? What am I thinking about? If I notice all of a sudden, like I was okay this morning, but now 2 hours later, I'm like, bye. I feel like my hair's on fire. Let's look at the last 2 hours and see what might be happening there. It will give us so many clues. So if this isn't just a me problem and I'm broken and it's my nervous system, if I can see where I am in my nervous system, understand what my nervous system is, then the next step is how do I then come in and use other ways, other tools, other things to manage my energy where maybe in the past I've only used food or I've only just beat myself up because I thought that I just am an anxious person. I'm just always going to be this way. I just can't get myself out of bed. Then if we can start seeing it from the nervous system perspective, then what we want to do, if you're above home base, if you have this excess energy, what do we need to do? We need to drain the energy. What might that look like? It might look like taking a walk. It might look like music. It might look like talking to a friend, just not to try to fix anything, but literally to just, like, here's all of the things that are going on. Sometimes we just need that, anything to drain the energy. If we're sometimes dancing, if you're angry, I will give you a hot tip, especially when the weather gets warmer and there are pool noodles available. Hot tip, go to the dollar store, buy a pool noodle and keep it under your bed. And then next time you get really angry and really frustrated, take out that foam pool noodle and just bash it on your bed. It is such a beautiful way to get some of that irritation, anger, frustration, energy out that is not going to harm anyone.
I feel like I'm never going to look at a pool noodle the same again.
Yes. I have had so many clients. I did this. When I first heard about it, I was like, okay. I went and I remember the first time I just hit that thing across the bed. I felt so much better afterwards. And I've had so many clients come to me and say, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Because so many of us are conditioned to don't get angry, don't be upset, don't raise your voice, don't whatever. And so it gives you a vehicle to very safely express that energy.
It's interesting. It brings to me like the thought of reparenting, because I think with my son, like he was very sensory with things. And so that was something that we learned with OT. Okay, take the pillow, throw the pillow. These are actually like techniques that at least I was teaching my kid. And I think that we just don't have these tools for ourselves. So I'm so glad that you're bringing, like giving the permission to people. This is one avenue. It's not just taking a walk. It's not just music, that this can be one other thing that they can do.
Yes, absolutely. We can use breathing on both sides too. If I have excess energy, any sort of breathing where your exhale is longer than the inhale is very powerful. There are so many breathing exercises on the internet, but anything where the exhale is longer than the inhale is very powerful. You can also do 5-finger breathing where you put your hand out and you basically just trace your hand. And so if you start on the outside of your pinky down at your wrist, and as you trace with your other finger, pointer finger, as you trace up to the top of your pinky, you inhale. And then you exhale going down in between your pinky and your fourth finger. And then you inhale going up, exhale as you go down. And essentially what you do is you're getting the sensory where you are touching yourself. You're also with each finger inhaling and exhaling. And as you get to the end of your 5 fingers, you have now done 5 deep breaths with just attention to your breathing and the sensory sensation of your hand on your finger on your hand, tracing your hand. It's pretty remarkable how in a very short period of time you can do something like that. Now, if you're below home base, we need energy. There's no energy. This one can be a little bit harder because you need to encourage yourself to do something. But if you can see, oh, this is my nervous system, let me see if bringing a little extra energy will change anything. And so we can do music. You might have a different playlist, right? If I'm like, if I'm really upset or if I'm really worried or anxious, my playlist might be very different than if I'm feeling depressed, but something to bring some energy. I don't necessarily want to encourage the depressed energy. I want to bring some sort of energy to me. Again, we can go for a walk. Another thing that's really powerful when you are below home base is to cold water on the backs of your hands or on your face. Both of those, because the skin is pretty thin in those areas. So that can, again, just bring a little bit of energy in. Any sort of connection with another person, a safe person, is very powerful when you are in that kind of below home base energy. Anything to bring in more energy.
It's so interesting. I'm just always thinking a lot of examples with my kid because I think that's where I've done a lot of this like co-regulation stuff, right? And I think about at night, he always loves to play soccer down by the kitchen in the hallway. This is his thing, like throwing a ball, throwing a hacky sack, it doesn't matter. And I think about one of the only ways that I want to be able to get off the couch, we play like the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, the Thunder song. Dun, 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 dun. Anyway, it's a song that it brings energy to the environment. And then I'm like, okay, I can get up. We can do this.
Yes.
I never thought about, I'm below home base at that time. And that's what's happening, that I'm using the music to get there.
And a lot of people after work are below home base, which makes sense. You have used so much of your energy. You're pretty much drained of your mental and your physical energy after a full day. So for a lot of people, they are below home base at the end of the day. And so if you want to do something at the end of the day, then really thinking through, okay, what are little gentle things? So if I'm below home base at the end of the day and I'm expecting myself to go to the gym and do some crazy workout for 60 minutes, it's probably not likely I'm actually going to get myself there. But if I can slowly, maybe I can just go for a walk for a little bit or play around with it from just the lens of the nervous system. The other thing you can do, this very powerful, I love that you're talking about your kid too, is think about when you were a kid. What did you do naturally? What did you love to do when you were a kid? So one of the things I know for me, even if I'm below home base, when I was a kid, I loved stuffed animals. So much. I loved stuffed animals. And I remember when I was in therapy for eating disorders treatment, we were talking about stuffed animals and she encouraged me to get a stuffed animal. So I went to the Build-A-Bear shop and I have a stuffed giraffe.
Wait, are you a Build-A-Bear fan as well? Because I'm a massive Build-A-Bear fan.
I had actually never been. So I've been once to create Ginger is my giraffe. And Ginger comes out when I am below home base and I'm feeling really low. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling whatever. Ginger, she has a very special place in my closet. And when I need her, she comes out. But I learned that because of thinking back on how did I comfort myself as a child. So when you were a child, what did you do naturally? What were the things that you did to drain energy when you had a lot of energy? What were the things that when you felt sad, when you didn't have much energy, what were the things that, helped you? That will can start to give you your own personal map.
That's so interesting that you bring it up. I've never put it together because over years I've really come to like coloring and crafting as I'm listening to something. But you're right. When I was growing up, we would get like back in the day, you had to get the cassette tapes and we would have like a murder mystery, 24 of them, and one after another. We're putting them in on the weekend and I'm just making random things. Like nothing was ever beautiful that was made, but it was just the act of that. I never thought about, I'm just recreating what I did
Yes.
back then. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And what's beautiful is that when what you were doing back then, if it was something that really just came naturally and you enjoyed and you loved it, this was before you were in survival mode, before you were told you shouldn't do that or that's not cool or whatever. It really is like you were working with your nervous system, with your biology, with your physiology. Now, if you're listening to this and let's say you grew up in not a very safe home and there was pretty much, I was not safe maybe from the beginning, then you can still think back to what you did as a child, but it may well be that the things you did as a child were really from that kind of survival place. So people who struggle with food, who have struggled with food since they were very young, sometimes it really is that kind of survival response. We very smartly, our system figures out food can make me feel better really fast. Food can calm that excess energy that comes into my system. It can do that really fast. And so we learn that and then we repeat it over and over. Now, unfortunately, it comes with a lot of other things. It may calm it, but then again, we may go all the way down below home base. It may create these other symptoms in our bodies. We may eat so much that then we're so disconnected that there's a lot of other things that come with it. But if we can start to see this not from a problem of I'm broken or I'm doing these bad things with food, it's like, oh, this is my nervous system. If I can learn how to identify what's happening in my nervous system, try other things to regulate my energy and see if I can increase the amount of time that I actually spend in home base and figure out what helps me be there. I can start to figure out, oh, if I work this many hours in a row, then maybe I'm too much. And so now I can make different decisions with how I'm spending my time to spend more time there. You will naturally find your food behaviors will decrease because you now have other ways to navigate, to regulate your nervous system rather than the kind of one tool that you've been using for so long.
You've often said in the past, your goal is not to not overeat, it's to self-regulate.
Yes.
So instead of focusing
Yes.
on the food, I love how you're saying we're actually finding other ways for you to feel better. And I love how you've made it very practical today that here's what home base is. You're either too high, too low. If you're too high, how can we bring it down? If you're too low, how can we bring it up? And that just the checking in multiple times a day to be a starting place, because I do think most people have no idea what's going on. And I know we started with that just to tell people, again, this can take a really long time, but hopefully you're understanding it with listening here in a way that's really simple, where you get now what it is that people are talking about when they keep saying nervous system.
Yes. What you can do is you can really pair this with checking in multiple times a day. When you wake up, where do I think I am? Before you eat, where am I in my nervous system right now? And, what do I notice about my eating behaviors if I'm in home base versus if I'm above versus if I'm below when I eat? Now, this doesn't mean you can only eat when you're in home base, but if you start to really notice the difference, you start to check in before you eat and you start to just have your own mapping, your own understanding of your nervous system, then you can start experimenting with, I'm really above home base right now. And I'm noticing when I start eating, when I'm in this place, I end up eating a lot more food than maybe I prefer, or I have a really hard time stopping. But let me just see what happens if I go walk around the block for 5 minutes and then come and eat. I'm not saying I can't eat, but let me do something else to try to drain a little bit of energy and see what difference that makes.
Yeah, I love it from the point of experimentation. And then I
Yeah.
find over time you can plan more for things because like you said, we're going to have times when the energy goes up. I know that there's one day a week in the clinic when it's a really long day for me. And I know the things I need to do at night to make sure that I get back to where I want to be and that everything doesn't go to hell in a handbasket. But that's been because just really noticing throughout the day how I feel and then being able to quicker take corrective action. I don't know if I can use that language. It helps me to faster get back to where I want to be instead of it being 3 days of not being in a great spot.
Yes. The more you can recognize it, then you can work with it. It's like, okay, we can anticipate, we can notice, we can adapt, we can adjust. Sometimes we don't notice until we're looking back. It's like, oh, that's exactly what was happening. It is the process of change. But when you can really just put your brain to work on, can I just start understanding my own nervous system? You don't have to get into all of the there's a lot of details. There's so much more you could dive in and learn. But as far as a place to start, really just understanding home base, that kind of grounded place, above, below, checking in. Are there things that I do that if I'm below, all of a sudden I try something else? I'm like, wow, I just feel better. Take note of that. Then you are developing your own roadmap because every individual literally is going to have their own roadmap of your unique nervous system that will change with age. It will change with time. It will change with your relationships. It will change with the time of the season, the time of year. All of it will change. A lot of it too is really being adaptable, being curious, being flexible, being willing to experiment with different things and not to think that there's some one size fits all. I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to just do the same thing for the rest of my life and take care of this system. That's not how it works.
Totally. It occurs to me as you're talking when everyone's always comparing all day long, like, well, they did that. So then I must have to do that to get the same result. And then they do it and they're so confused why the result's not the same. And that's really hitting me how we're all so different that there's no way that we could regulate in the same way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Today, I just love how you explained everything and it's so practical. Can you tell people how they can connect with you? Maybe a little bit about your book, your groups, podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing, we were talking about this before we started. I am going to create a worksheet for anybody listening that's going to go over what we talked about today, just the basics of home base, above home base, below home base. It will give you a kind of a visual so you can see what we talked about. For some people have a better time learning visually. If you want this worksheet, there will be a link in the show notes. You can go download that there. So it will give you a little bit more information. So just know that's there. If you want to find me in other places, I have a podcast that's called Binge Eating Breakthrough. It's on all the podcast players. I also have a book by the same name, Binge Eating Breakthrough. Then I do private coaching one-on-one. I also have a group coaching program for women who struggle with food. I also have The Gathering, and The Gathering is where Matea was talking about this discussion around the nervous system. The Gathering is a once a month. It is a call one time a month that really is focused more on the nervous system. It is not food specific. It really is learning to understand more about your nervous system. So many people now really want to slow down. We're craving to slow down, but we don't really know how. And we also want to trust ourselves. It's like, oh, I want to learn how to trust myself, but I don't really know how. I wanted to create this space because it's something that is unique, something I haven't seen anywhere else. It is not a class. It is not a program. It is not you have to go catch up on 12 calls that you missed. It is literally one call a month where I teach something about the nervous system, about slowing down, about learning how to trust yourself. And one of the things that's really interesting that I have learned so much in this nervous system work is sometimes if we haven't been around a nervous system that is regulated, if we haven't been around somebody who has some of these traits that we are working to create in ourselves, we don't know what it looks like. And one of the amazing things about co-regulation is through a space like that, you can see it. You can start to feel it. You can start to see, oh, that's what it looks like. Oh, I can start thinking about this. The goal of The Gathering literally is one call a month and to be in an environment where you can start to, through co-regulation, through learning about the nervous system, start to learn more about it and work with it without it being I have this new thing to do and I have all of these, I have to catch up and I have all this homework and these things that kind of take us out of the connection and regulation that ultimately we're really all trying to get to in the first place.
Totally. I love it. And you even haven't made it complicated with a big course site to get into. And it's just,
Yes.
it's so easy. It's so simple. I want to use the word like nourishing because it's exactly what you're talking about, the slowing down, figuring things out. You end up the rest of your month, you're in a different spot with it. And it's not that you have to answer another worksheet or something. But by the way, I'm excited about your worksheet.
Yes.
Yes. That's going to write down what we just talked about.
That's right. And that's where there are places where worksheets are so helpful. Like in this case, this is going to be the worksheet that we're creating from today is going to be, how do you take this learning and really apply it and see it? The gathering is, I don't want you to have a worksheet. I want you to, whatever you have heard this month, to just take it, let it just be a seed that plants in your mind. And then you, through your actions, through what you're thinking about, through what you're noticing that month, like they will be watered and planted through just how you live your life for the next month. So there really is a time and a place for them.
Totally. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We're going to make sure to link to everything in the show notes. Everybody, it's either right below where you're listening, or you can go to rentiaclinic.com and you can click on podcast and we'll have everything there in a nice post. Just thank you again for taking all this time. I know that everyone, they just learn so much from you every single time that you come on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I could talk about this all day.
That marks the end of today's episode. But if you're newer to the podcast, I want to tell you about something that we have, and it's a free podcast roadmap. So this is perfect for any of you that are listening where you want to be directed to very specific episodes. So let's say that you are just starting out and you want to know, what should I do right when I start on the medications? Or you're experiencing certain side effects on the GLP-1s, or you want to know what to do if you're in a plateau, or if emotional eating is taking over, or if hunger levels are high. So we have many different categories of episodes that we've talked about because there's a lot at this point. So if you want to be able to navigate that very easily, we have it broken down by category and also the episodes that are there, and we hyperlink to everything. So you can just click on it and find the episode, easy peasy. If you want that, you can go to rentiaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. We'll have it linked right here underneath the show notes where you're listening. And you can go ahead and get that free resource so that it makes it easy for you to navigate, because I know that it's really hard when someone has an established podcast. I am such a podcast fiend. I'm listening to podcasts all day long. And when I find one that I love, but there's a lot that are out there, I am so lost. So I hope that you enjoy this free podcast roadmap. Again, the link to get to that is going to be rentiaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions.